Exchange is very similar to global change. Exchange allows you to make changes to several records at the same time. A couple of differences though. First of all, with Exchange, you can change more than one field in the set of records at the same time. With global change, you can only change one field at a time. Also with Exchange, changes can be temporary. So instead of being I call it permanent change, you can specify a date, an expiry date, and on that date, the changes will revert to their original value when the housekeeping is run. Housekeeping runs automatically every day. Also with Exchange, instead of having to select which fields you'd like to choose, there's drop-down lists available. We'll see that in a moment when we use the Exchange function. The process is very similar to global change. You search for the records that you'd like to change, and we're going to be using the Exchange function in copies. The Exchange function isn't available for all areas. Exchange is only available for copies and borrowers. We're going to be demonstrating the copies exchange today. So search for the copies you'd like to change in this case. Select which field or fields you'd like to change, and select which value or values you'd like each field to be. We'll see that. It'll make more sense when we see the screen. If you want any of the changes to be temporary, in other words, reverted back to the original value at a specified date, you can enter an expiry date for each of the individual fields that you change. Let's have a look at Exchange. I'll go back to my management area. And in this example, I'm going to cataloging and copies. And I'll set up a display. And what I'd like to do is to temporarily make those items on display not for loan. In the case of a unit of work that's being covered or a research topic that's being covered, you might take a group of resources and maybe change the resource loan category to a shorter loan period so that there's fairer use of the resources. So I've got the items in my hand, so I'll go to the copies menu on the right hand side and choose multi-barcode search. So the search I'm doing is actually physically scanning the items in. So I'll scan in my school barcodes. Once you've entered them, click on search. And the copies that you scanned in are displayed on the screen. Currently they've got resource loan categories of non-fiction, fiction, so a couple of different values, fiction and non-fiction. What I'd like to do is temporarily make these particular items not for loan, either because they're high demand or they're on display. So once I've got my copies identified, I then go to the cataloging menu on the left hand side of the screen and choose Exchange. When Exchange is selected, at the top of the screen it reads the current search result contains 7 copies. So in other words, you know what's going to be changed. Only a few of the items are displayed at the top of the screen, only 4 of them, but rest assured all will be affected. If you need to see all the copies that will be affected, you could click View Affected Copies. Or you could always go back to You Are Here and look at your list of 7 copies again if you wanted to. Otherwise, you move to the bottom of the screen and there's a few fields you can change. You can change the branch. You can change the collection, the status, or the resource loan category. Underneath each of these fields is an expiry date. There's a branch expiry date, collection expiry date, status expiry date, and resource loan category expiry date. For today's example, I'm going to change the resource loan category. And I can select a value from the drop-down list using the arrow on the right-hand side. I'm going to change them to not for loan. I'm also going to specify a date. RLC is short for resource loan category. The exchange expiry date is the date they'll revert back to their original setting. You can either type in a date in the format day/day / month/month / 4-digit year, or select a date using the calendar picker. and I'll change this back on, say, the 31st of October. Maybe that unit of work finishes on the 31st, or the display is being dismantled on that date. So not for loan, 31st of 10th. If I wanted to, and I don't need to in this example, I could change other fields as well. I could even change the status to be not for loan as well. Not that that would affect its loaning effect during the circulation desk, but it would display differently in search. Later today we talk about branches. You could change the branch from the library branch to being maybe the school resources branch. I'll go over that example in a moment though. So I've got my 7 copies. I've chosen resource owned category not for loan, specified the expiry date or the date they'll change back, and then I'll click the start button. Looks like the go button. In the left hand corner, it looks like a little arrow, a little triangle. Click on that and the changes have been made. The exchange affected 7 copies, and you can see the category is now not for loan. It doesn't show all 7 copies. At the top of the screen it reads the exchange affected 7 copies, view the affected copies, and at the top it even reads exchange to resource owned category not for loan until the 31st of 10th. On the 31st of 10th, during the housekeeping process, which will happen after school's finished, the housekeeping process will change everything back to its original setting, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. If I click to view the affected copies, I can see the resource owned category is not for loan, as displayed on the right hand side of the screen. But more importantly, if I click on the number on the left hand side of the screen to display its details, I can see its resource owned category is currently not for loan. If it is exchanged from non-fiction, the date it was exchanged was today, and the date it will expire is the 31st. So you can actually see the details of everything that's happened. To get back to your list of 7 copies, you could go back to You Are Here and go back to your copy list of 7 on the left hand side. There's your 7 resources not for loan. The example which you might use for your textbooks, let's say you'd like to move all your textbooks from being in the library to being in the school resources branch instead. You could go to copies. Now you wouldn't have to scan all the barcodes in of these, because you'd hope that all your textbooks have their own collection. So you could search for a collection of textbooks. Click on search. And the copies would be listed here. You could then use exchange and change the branch to be school resources. I don't have any textbooks in my particular collection because they've moved across already. The process is very similar. You can do copy searches by collection as well as scanning barcodes. Okay, so that's exchange. Exchange is very similar to global change, except it's only for certain fields in certain areas, such as copies.